That's a good sign.
Hey, how's everybody?
Hello. Doing great.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, Internet.
Hello, world. All right. We're only 2 minutes in. Do we want to give it a second to see if anyone else hops in?
Just as an FYI, I hear I'm headed to a train station, so you might hear some noise in the background.
Noted. Hello, Alex. Alex, are you logging in at 2 a.m. for us? Much appreciated if so. Very cool.
Oh, thanks. Sex.
Thanks, Mike. That's what I was going for with the handshake hoodie.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Guess I could put my video on. Cool. How are we doing a video? No video.
From this famous workstation. I mean, it's up to you, Mike. It's up to you. But I think we're all used to seeing you on video.
It's Margie's birthday at Bitmain, so we should get her some gifts or something.
Yeah, Margie, shout out. All right. Little Margie, shout out.
Technically tomorrow, but
Got it. Been a busy year for Margie. I feel like Eskimo was gonna hop in here, right?
Santiago, who's he's here, I see him here. Is this YouTube? Did we figure out Twitter or YouTube or multi-channel? I saw you testing.
Yep. The Twitter worked fine from what I saw. I'm not sure if Eskimo will be here. It should be here. It's only what, 7 o'clock over where he is, I think.
Yeah, I just sent him a DM. It's usually pretty quick to respond, so we'll see.
Yep. Seem to have chosen the right time.
Yeah, we got a good turnout. Do we have a? I guess I shouldn't be asking. Do we have an agenda? Do we have a starting point?
Well, we've got 2 topics, Hard Fork and Bounties, that we've listed on the event, but like, I think you just talk about anything else. Yeah, that looks so interesting. Can't wait for it. So I wonder how they're going to do it. Because Cardano smart contracts, I'm not sure how they're going to do the DNS on that. Yeah, it'll be interesting anyway.
I think it's like 6 a.m. for him, maybe, if I recall.
Yo,
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 I didn't get any of my 3 notifications I set. Here I am.
nice.
lucky for you, I'm not shy to hound you, Eskimo.
Oh
you
yeah,
have the
dude,
hashtag.
I completely
Never
forgot.
signed.
So good thing you messaged me, man.
Be the fastest
So what's going on in here?
responder. We're just getting started. Kind of a continuation of the last talk on X.
All right, all right.
Let's go.
All right.
Remember, if the teacher didn't show up after 10 minutes, we could all leave.
Aren't you the teacher?
Oh yeah,
I'm
really.
just saying, 10 minutes waiting for folks is a good limit. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to get into the conversation.
Hell yeah.
Likewise.
So, Migs, how's SoCal?
Can't complain. It's warm, but we're making the most of it. I'm trying to be a good native and actually get out in the sun and touch some sand and some grass. But it's good. I went up to the mountains last weekend just to get away for a little bit. Super great. Love nature. Got to get out of the house more often. What about you? Sounds like you're finally home. You're not traveling the world at the moment.
Yeah, back home. Kids start school next week, so dealing with kids. They're fighting a lot. I guess it's normal this age. Teaching. Maybe I need Jesse's input. My son takes
I
my
don't know what you mean by
daughter's.
this age. I think that's just all ages for kids.
So my son took my daughter's phone and started saying swear words to her friend on like Facebook Messenger, as if it was my daughter. They need HNS names, man. See, verify your identity here.
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
Mike, that's
these
never gonna stop. As somebody, I have a brother and then I have a sister. Me and my brother just terrorized my sister like her whole life, basically. It never stops.
Oh man.
Can
Yeah,
you hear me
I felt it was a little bit bad. I said it could have been more funny because it was just more like F words over and over, you know. So I
now?
said
Can
if
you
you,
guys hear me?
You have to make it
I said if
believable at least, you know?
yeah, I said if you can do something funny, you know, I kind of have say something more funny, you know, like I would say.
Yeah. Usually, you know, my siblings would just tease each other. They usually don't, you know, impersonate each other.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Finally. Having some
Wolf in
trouble.
the house. Good to see you.
How's it going, guys? Nice to see everybody.
Yeah.
What up?
man.
What up?
That's pretty good.
And
Great
hear
turnout.
your voices.
Hey guys.
There we go.
Sajid.
What's up, man?
G'day.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, I didn't get my notification. I set the time zone to PST, but I set the time to EST. Like, yeah, like the number was in EST, like 9 EST, but then I set it to PST, so I wouldn't get the notification for 3 more hours. That's my problem. Oops. Oh yeah.
Just use UTC.
All right. I feel like it's time to get started, at least in some direction. The conversation will evolve. Is that fair? We're gonna have a quick recap. Let's get Santiago just 1 second. We're getting some audio issues. Who was everyone here on the last call? The last call that happened on X? I think Andrew was there, Jesse was there, Mike.
I mean, it was also recorded. I don't know if everybody got to hear it. They weren't there for it, but I feel majority of people were there.
Mhm. Okay.
Well, I saw Sajid had a comment in Twitter. I mean, I think what we want to try to do is hear I feel like mostly the people talking on these seem supportive of it, but then there's people that are not talking that are not supportive of it. So I felt like we wanted to encourage the other side of the argument, right? I feel is one part we had said, like, I mean, so I don't know, Sajid had a comment I saw on his Twitter. I don't know if he's here, if you'd like to share that, but maybe we just hear the other side, because I feel like, from my interpretation, the bases most were supportive of such. Maybe there's of course different details about how it's done, but it seems most were supportive of it, right? The general idea of taking funds that from GitHub and others that weren't distributed and reallocating them. But I know there's a few voices that are not for that, so I think we should hear the other side of that, right? Perfect.
Thank you for that
Thanks
recap,
so much.
Santiago.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree.
yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
I
I can.
were you gonna say something there, Mix?
I was only. Yes. Yeah. Something does come to mind, right? We are all here with the current version of Handshake the way that it was designed, and I think kind of with the intention of advancing it. But we all at some point agreed and bought into the concept of the developer airdrop, and I think that one of the driving reasons for the developer airdrop was that people who had demonstrated skin in the game of a handshake type world would be able to use funds to advance a post handshake world. So the hard fork is going to change that in some regard, but that is kind of the origin story, right? We agreed with to some capacity with the developer airdrop and thought it made sense. And so if there is going to be a hard fork and funds are going to become available, I think that whether it is SLD sellers or some other group, it should be somebody that interacts. Now that we are in a post handshake world, that has demonstrated a true and close interaction to the chain at its most like fundamental form. And that could be SLD sellers, it could be self custody owners of tokens and names. I don't know, but I guess I'm just kind of reverse engineering how we got here.
Yeah, I think that's important actually, because I just want to. I like the idea of maybe. I know that we talked about moving the conversation forward, but something I said a lot on the last call that I think is important is to maybe even move the conversation backward and not do anything hasty. I think that was the first public conversation about a reallocation. And something that I was advocating strongly on the call is that we provide space for a very patient and meticulous conversation about this. Obviously, the future of Handshake is more or less in our hands. And, some proposals have been put forward, but I think there could be a lot more. And, in some ways, this is almost a celebration of the success of Handshake. I think, we're 5 years in ish right now, and there's 11 million TLDs in folks' hands, and I would consider Handshake a success. I think that the developer airdropped wasn't heavily claimed, and that could be a blessing in disguise for us. So one thing I want to continue to reiterate, and sort of maybe even a role that I provide in this, is making space for a patient and nuanced conversation, right? I want Handshake to be here in 50 years, 100 years. And so taking several months, even years to do the right thing is important. And I'm particularly as we begin to hear other people's voices, people opposed to the reallocation, people opposed to the proposals that have been put forth. I think this is important enough that everybody can that I would like everyone to relax and be able to think clearly about what this means. The way that it was put forward originally, I think, created a lot of fear in people. And under those circumstances, we can't think clearly. And so I think if we can take some deep breaths, we can almost celebrate the success of Handshake, right? And start to craft a plan for what the future might look like with these coins, without these coins. That is important to me. As far as the specifics, I almost want an agreement that nothing is going to happen in the next few months, right? That there's not going to be a small group of insiders that executes a hard fork and everyone else is stuck dealing with it. I think we're the early adopters, right? We're the people that care more than anyone else. And frankly, what's important to me is that we're still here in 20 years and 50 years, that my kids grow up in a world where there's a free and sovereign internet. And it may be even worth remembering why Handshake, because it's a big, hairy, audacious goal. And I honestly think it's been successful. So I just want to kind of set the tone with that, right? Handshake is a revolution. It is a disintermediation of a controlled internet, right? I can't freely buy or create a TLD except on Handshake, right? I couldn't. If I'm going to buy a domain, I have to buy a controlled domain, .commerce even, right? And so there's a beautiful vision here that remains, and it's for a free, open internet. And remembering why Handshake, I think, can help us orient ourselves in this discussion. Where are we going to be in 20 years, 50 years? I want everyone to check their greed. Check their greed, because your individual bags are not the revolution, right? This Handshake is a tool for free internet. And we should be thinking as a community how to make decisions to keep it open and to keep it alive. I don't want to jump into which group gets what money and these guys should get this and these guys get this, without departing from why we're all here to begin with, right? You read the project notes, which is the white paper, that's what we all bought into, right? I knew of the developer airdrop when I bought in, and even partly funded a claims tool to make sure people could claim it. But it didn't go that way. I think we have enough manpower here, more or less, to keep the chain moving. And the real question is now, what do we do going forward? Do we reallocate the developer airdrop? Do we burn it? Do we do nothing? And I want everyone to feel comfortable that there's enough space to express all the opinions, all the different ideas, all the counter proposals. But I don't want us to lose sight of what Handshake is. It isn't Namebase. It isn't Digitalis domains. It is a decentralized root zone, and potentially something that often gets lost, certificate authority. So we want to preserve that. That's where our focus should be. How do our kids grow up in a world that is freer? And this is how I want to depart into this conversation.
Thanks, Jesse, for that.
And I can continue. And if I were to just jump into it, I imagine that we will be here in 20 years no matter what. What's the most important thing to being here in 20 years? I think that's somewhat debatable. If we reallocate or if we don't reallocate, where will we be? When I consider it, I think I want to make sure that a select that there are people that can work on the protocol level, right? What would we do without Rithvik and Nodar and Zipkin and actual developers that can work on the chain? There are many of us that are domain investors and all of this, but I want to make sure that we have a war chest so that we can employ basic development at a protocol level. And so that's a bit of a differing proposal for why I would want to reallocate. And I don't need to continue to say this. I am interested in hearing other people's opinions and having a debate on this, but I want to say that I want to see Handshake continue to grow and develop. And I think what is debatable is, and I would say we all do, right? There's no doubt about that. The question is, how do we get there? Do we do a reallocation? Do we do a burn? And, or do we do nothing? I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like doing nothing is now off the table. The developer airdrop isn't what it used to be. It's not even really in the same position. The keys of the folks that had their GitHub accounts back then, it is time for a change in that way. And the soft fork was proposed, just wipe that clean. But I know that there's a lot of people in favor of a reallocation. And there's also a lot of people that are opposed to it. I think that a reallocation gives us a war chest. And I do like to use that language because, the environment that we're in. I don't want to live in a world that's on lockdown by a small amount of folks and companies that say, if I want to launch my website, I have to buy it on their TLD, and there's not even a choice. So we all want to see Handshake succeed. We have differences of opinion on how that's going to take place. Reallocation is on the table, and I think the voices that haven't been heard are the ones who are against the reallocation. I think Sajin was one of these. I don't know if he's still here, but I think us doing our due diligence and being respectful of multiple opinions and everyone that's brought us here today, regardless of our perspective, is to provide space for opposing views. Otherwise, we're guilty of the censorship that we're trying to overcome. So I would love to hear people's views, people that support the view of just burn the coins, of, like Mackie, his view of do the soft fork, don't allow any more developer claims, just let it be. I think even though I'm pro reallocation, I would say I'm not identified with that outcome. And I want to make sure that everybody in the community feels like they have a voice and there's a forum for them to express that. So I'm gonna mute my mic and hopefully we can hear some diversity and perspective.
Sajin, do you want to speak? I see you here.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So
I can
the way I see it is there are some genuine problems.
Is Sajin's mic on?
I hear.
Can you guys hear me?
Because if I remember correctly, he was opposed to a reallocation.
Yeah, we all hear him.
Okay, well then I'm going to jump off and get back on because I can't hear him. I see that Mike can hear him.
Yeah, I can hear him.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, I
Yeah,
can.
Okay,
All
great.
right.
So, see, I see there are certain situations in the community, and the thing which is one is there is a reallocation. There's a lot of unclaimed tokens that's just lying there. Even if you don't do anything about it, it's a bit of a hard burn and disappointment as well, because we had allocated it for a purpose and it's just not really worked out. So yeah, if nothing, that is something that definitely needs to be dealt with. And there are certain people who are talking about that. Then there is another problem, which is the community needs funds to do things. And there are a certain number of people who are talking about that. The problem is largely rising because we are trying to kill two birds with one stone. The solution to this reallocation is also going to be the solution to my funding problem. Now, that is where a two set of people who are talking about two different things come into conflict. So I thought, why not look at them individually? So let's say there is this unclaimed tokens. Let's burn it. That gets rid of that problem. And then we say, okay, we need money. Now, reallocation need not be the answer to it. We need money. That's a reality. We all understand that. But how do we get that money? Can we create fresh tokens? Would that require a hard fork? I'm not very technically equipped to answer that question, but that is something I would have a strong point of view, and I'll come to that why. But yeah, if it's possible to print new tokens without a hard fork, that's definitely something I'm open to. Or even Handshake was created by funds from some of the top VCs. Can't we go back to them and say, hey, you gave 10 million and here we are, put in another 1 million, 1.5 million from 5-10 VCs as a pool, as a grant to the entire community? I'm sure they'll see a financial opportunity to do that. I mean, there could be many ways to raise 1.5 million fund to just, pay some devs to do on-chain work. It doesn't have to be such a big circus. Many of us are influential, connected, working in big companies. I mean, and it's not just one startup that needs to prove itself. It's like some 100 startups and communities spread all over the planet, made by, has a history of funding from big people. Maybe we can raise funds like that. It doesn't have to get into this allocation and all of that issue. It's a separate question altogether. So that was my submission. Why don't we look at each problem in its individual capacity and try and solve it without bringing other issues in, because then even people who are not related to it get all involved. Someone who's focused on promotion may not give a shit about whether the tokens are just lying there or if it's burnt. What difference does it make? It doesn't. But the moment you talk about now I'm invested in that little thing. I want to know what's happening there. So if we think unclaimed tokens are useless, sure, I agree. Let's burn it. We need fresh money to run the community. Let's figure out how to get some money. It doesn't have to be a lot of so much problem. And with respect to hard fork, if it's a 95% consensus hard fork, maybe, yeah. I'll tell you what my personal reservation is. A lot of you may not be aware of what's happening here in India. As a startup, we have been given a grant by the government of India. Now, the government of India is someone that can set maybe the British government to shame when it comes to paperwork, crosses, red tapeism, and every other kind of, uh, opposition to innovation. But the only reason that they decided to look at a startup, and they are very crypto unfriendly, by the way. Everything crypto related is taxed massively in this country to ensure you don't do it. So a government of that mindset, largely conservative financially, has decided to give us a grant to build simply because it is a decentralized root zone of the internet, and they feel that it may free them from foreign policy decisions of other nations and blocs. There is a very strong geopolitical component to it. So I am very, very hesitant to dilute that. I mean, 1/6 of the human race is very open to building this because it's just one. And now there'll be two if there is a hard fork. Some may go this way, some may go that way. I don't want a Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash kind of situation. It just won't work well for anyone, literally. So, yeah, and I agree with that thing. Will we have it 50 years down the line? That should be the objective.
Is there somebody here technical to answer some of those, just to clarify?
Yeah, will a
I think-
new will a new issue of tokens entail a hard fork?
I think creating new ones would make a hard fork. I mean, we're not really proof of, but I don't know,
Why
maybe,
I'll
and I
create
saw,
new ones.
Sorry, what is the question? I don't know the tokenomics or the chain, but but you want technicals. I can probably give you some
I
information.
mean, Sajid, can you maybe just reiterate a couple of points you weren't clear about the
For
implications of?
instance, if instead of reallocating, I know that burning the soft that's the soft fork. But if we were to print new tokens,
Yeah,
would that mean?
anything messing with the supply, as far as I understand, is going to burning it. Generally, it's just like dev sending to borrow a Linux term. Burning money is basically going to dev null. But trying to create anything at thin air requires you actually change the consensus rules. Can change the consensus rule. It's a hard fork.
Okay, so yeah, that's a hard fork. So that's my reservation to hard fork. Again, like I said, I'm not identified with any outcome. I would like the community just to give it a little deeper thought and say we have different problems. Maybe there are more imaginative solutions to those problems. The problem is not whether we should reallocate. The problem is we have no money to pay the devs. That's the problem. So how can we get some money to pay the devs?
I reallocate.
That, yeah, I mean, okay. I mean, we can look at that. So that's the only thing. I'm very averse to a hard fork because of the way conditions are in my ecosystem.
I mean, could we clarify that point too, though? Like, so we would have, would this create two? This would create two. I mean, do
Yeah,
we discuss?
It would create two chains, and
Why do
the
you
miners.
assume that? Why do you assume that it would create two chains, Sajin?
Maybe again, like I said, since I'm not technical, maybe I've gotten that wrong. But
It's only hard forks are from a technical basis, and this is something even I have people recently in site asking about that don't really understand blockchains in general that deeply. The only time you in the macro picture, a hard fork is a software upgrade. It's like going from Windows 10 to Windows 11. The only time you have time you have a problem is if 50% start bitching and say we don't want to agree, and then you have to get two different sets of miners running two different sets of change, and then basically the database forks and makes two different copies of the database because people dissent. If no one,
exactly.
if everyone agrees, a hard fork is just a
yeah. I get that bit. I get that bit. That's why I said, I mean, if 95% are in agreement, then we can go ahead and do the fork, because then there is one. That's what I'm focused on. There needs to be one decentralized root zone. Can't have two. Then that's not going to go well.
Your concerns aren't necessarily about anything personal or professional. It's just more that you don't want things to go to hell, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want two chains to happen. That's something I'm really worried about. And secondly, if there is contention about reallocation, why not look at them independently and say, okay, we can think about reallocation a little later. At the end, it's about getting some money for the community. So
a whole two chain thing could happen without this whole reallocation hard fork in general. I mean, somebody could just decide Handshake isn't working out, but it's not because of a protocol issue, and just fork Handshake and start it on their own with a new name. So this whole discussion really doesn't prevent a second Handshake chain coming out with a different name.
Yeah, all you need is, quite frankly, and this is obviously is unrealistic, but it's not, but it can happen. All you need is, for example, one of the biggest whales I know is frankly Richard of Name Cheat saying, "Oh," and decide to look at us, be mad at what we've done, and say "fuck them," and just pay a bunch of miners, and all of a sudden make a new chain, and then have name based pivot, and then we're in the dust. I mean, that nothing stops him right now from basically doing that, because all you need there is money.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So if you're worried about two chains, I mean, that could just happen at any point, regardless of any of these situations.
Okay, understood.
Do you mind if I talk next? Because I have a macro perspective.
I think I saw Andrew speaking or unmuting. Does Andrew want to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, no, first off, I appreciate kind of everybody setting the intention for this. We put a lot of energy and our hearts into this project, and to kind of harp on what Handshake Jesus was talking about. The protocol has enough energy to continue. Continues to produce blocks. One way I've been lately kind of thinking about, what is cryptocurrency and what is Handshake and these kinds of things. Well, so I think Handshake exists in a few different parts, but as it relates to kind of the token and the price and the value of this. You tend to think that it's some form of kind of energy and conversion back and forth from energy within the community, people building on it, to converting it to capital and these kinds of things. And so in terms of the reallocation, a lot of the objectives is around injecting or transferring, more energy kind of into the system. So the way, maybe one way to kind of think about this open source airdrop is it's this, in the form of HNS energy that's kind of trapped within the Handshake ecosystem, because it's not, there's people aren't claiming it and releasing it and taking that energy and converting it to, projects that they build and so on and so forth. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways to kind of think about how this energy is transferred. I know there was an idea of a multi-sig that was proposed by Paul, which basically takes that energy that's harnessed on chain to hundreds of thousands of individual open source developers and reallocates it to a multi-sig of community members to further reallocate to different projects and grants and things like that. So that's maybe perhaps one way. But generally, as we think about this reallocation structure, we're kind of thinking about how to transform and take this energy source and in a way to make Handshake the overall ecosystem much bigger and more energetic. So yeah, I mean, those are just kind of my opening thoughts. I'm not tied or married to any of these solutions right away. But yeah, Noel here also has been kind of working a little bit on furthering the initial kind of proposal that circulated around how to around some of the reallocation discussions, and I'm not sure if he's kind of ready to talk about it, but that may be something we can discuss here on the call.
All right. Yeah, I also would love to hear from Noel too. Thanks, Andrew. I'm not sure if he's willing or able. I know Derek wanted to share. I see Paul unmuting. Maybe I pass it to or Noel. Do you want to speak, and then maybe Derek? I think those are some people in queue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really here just to listen to the
Noel, I see
community.
you unmuted.
Okay.
Do you have something to share with us?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear him.
You hear him?
me?
I don't
Okay.
hear him. Oh no. You have to leave and come
always
back.
a
Nicolini,
Discord.
can't hear me.
All right, I'll do
Yeah,
it.
well,
Because I
no.
was talking shit about Twitter Spaces for doing this, and I've never had this happen on Discord, and here we are on Discord with the same fucking problem.
I'll be
Oh yeah, by the
Yeah.
way, guys, I just thought while we are talking about converting energy, there are 10,000 domains stuck in energy, and I don't really think more than the top 1,000 are really worth storing.
For sure.
And it just doesn't really serve any purpose. So those, while we are converting energy, maybe we should convert those at least 9,000 of them out. Maybe we can keep the top 500 or 1,000, the Googles and the Facebooks, and just release.
Seems like we have our own words on Bitcoin ordinals right now.
Yeah, I can say if at least one other person can hear me, I can just say real quick that the purpose of being here is just to listen to others, really. So that's what I hope to get out of this call. Seeing that Handshake is a community project. As Andrew said, I have been working with him and some others, just to try to gather as much feedback as possible, just to figure out a way to move us forward. I believe Handshake Jesus put it really nicely, that we all are very passionate about Handshake. I would say over the years, what led me to Handshake was the fact that it was actually decentralized, and I believe that's why many of us are part of Handshake, right? The decentralized nature. There's not another project out there that I'm aware of that has launched in the past half decade that is actually decentralized, community-led entirely. Having said that, I would say over the past year or so has grown on me to, we implemented a soft fork successfully, which is kudos to all of us in the community. That's not just one person or one group that did that. That was, dozens, hundreds of us that were involved, with implementing that soft fork. But we all also knew that with that soft fork, we would have to implement a hard fork at some point. My thoughts originally just had to do with the useless remaining Alexa top 10K names. Just saw Jen say that. And also ICANN TLDs. That's kind of where I was initially thinking that we'd have to do a hard fork. And I do think whatever hard fork proposal, we do need to solve for that, to allow for VeriSign or whoever wants to claim their ICANN TLD. So that way it's not, casted away forever. But having said that, it has grown on me with this open source airdrop, just listening, thinking about it, to reallocate it to the community. I do have my concerns, just as I believe everybody has concerns about, being very careful with that. So that's really why I want to listen on this call. And
I'm going to turn on my camera to be on a handshake space.
Okay.
Mike yourself.
Announcement to the world. No.
Okay.
Paul, I think we hear you. You're not muted.
Yeah.
Oh wait, what? My bad.
No, you're good, man. Nope. You're good.
It brought us back home.
Yeah. So with that being said, I just want us to, whatever we decide, over the coming months, I want us to be as thoughtful as possible. I have like a draft that I know some of us have access to it. I believe that whatever we do propose, if we do a reallocation and not burn it, is to have multiple layers just to maximize the community involvement. And so with that being said, I'm open for others to continue the discussion. It's hard for me to share exactly what I have, seeing that it is, it's over a dozen pages, but I really hope to share it publicly soon. I know that Andrew had mentioned like to TLD, communities, or those that have built TLD communities. I was initially against that. I've since come back around and, have put together like a proposal of ways, so that way no one is gaming the system, and that way we can spread the reallocation as dispersed as possible, but while putting in the hands of those that can actually do something with it. But Andrew, did you have anything that you wanted to get into specifically? Otherwise, others in the call can chime in.
I was thinking that why not just put it up on GitHub so we can all take a look at it, right?
Yeah,
it
would be nice if you could share it, Noel. Yeah, I've taken a look at it. I think it's pretty amazing. But I guess he wants to craft a little bit more before releasing it. I don't know when it's out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely open to it.
There's a saying
to doing that. Yeah, I'm just trying to be a little bit more careful. Just before. Yeah, of course, I want this to be shared with the public, and I want to gather feedback and everything across the board, but just making little changes here and there. But I'm definitely open to putting it up on GitHub soon.
I know one big highlight. If I could, I hope I can share this one highlight from it that I think would help with the community's acceptance of it. Is I think there's investors behind it that would buy some of it, because I know a lot of people's fear is that it would dump the price. It would just tank the price because people just take it and sell it for fiat. So I don't know if we could share about that.
Yeah, it's up
'Cause
to
I know that's
Andrew if he wants to share any details on that.
that's a concern a lot of people have, and I think if that was um, alleviated a bit, it might change people's perspective.
I have a question about the token price. Assuming it does go down, how long would that be?
I'm not sure anyone can ever figure that one out. So that's like, if I think we can figure that one out, you'd be able to time the market and get rich.
Yeah.
Like that's like trying to ask when is Bitcoin going ahead $100,000.
You know,
Yeah, so like it doesn't seem to me to be like a real issue to me. It seems just like a reason to disagree, if that makes sense, because like the utility is not the token, it's the fucking names. So like it would rebound at some point.
Well, I want to raise my hand. I guess what I want to say is I think we should, I don't want to segregate our community, but I think we should put different hats. We have different hats. There's builders, there's investors, or maybe the domain investors or coin, but there's miners. I think, I don't know, maybe we can define the camps. And I think each of us should kind of think where we fit on that. And that might be why we have our opinions, because we either consciously or subconsciously are in that segment of the community, right? So if you're a pure investor, let's just say you're a pure investor, you don't have domains, you just have HNS, you decided not to hold too many domains, you're gonna naturally not want the price to dump because your investment in this project is in the coin, right? So I'm not saying I'm representing one or the other. I just think we should consider in our mind where we are and where others are that have their opinion, right? So if you see people's opinion, you might think it's based on their position, right? If they're a miner, they're probably even losing money mining right now, right? They're probably paying more on electricity than they're getting on the coin, right? So if the price goes further down, they'll be even more um, disincentivized to mine, right? If you're a builder, which I think a lot of us maybe on this call are builders, of course, we want to get the funds because we want to support ourselves to build, right? So I just think we should also be aware of where we are in this community as an individual contributor, right?
I want to say this again. I think it's too early to go into the proposals. I really do. I think that, Sagen said something that I also think is important about taking this a piece at a time, right? If we're looking to gain consensus, I think it's moving too fast to jump into a proposal conversation right now. I think if we could put our heads together a little bit and even game theory, what happens if we do nothing, right? How do we see things playing out, right? We've gotten this far with no dev funds, right? What happens if we don't do a reallocation? Because again, I think going into specific proposals, it's too early. I think there's enough opposition. There isn't a lot of vocal opposition on this call, but I would say like there's enough people that think we should burn the coins or do nothing or do a soft fork to stop the claim part that there, you know, I think it's too early to go into the proposal without us being able. I actually cut and pasted Andrew's original proposal up into the GitHub, um, link, and without us able to all look at it and pull it apart. And I know, Noel, you said that you want to be careful with it, but it's like, let us help. You know what I'm saying? Get contribution, get peer review. If there are bad ideas, the community will let you know, right? If there are good ideas, we'll support them. I think the radical transparency about this stuff is going to help get consensus, right? And my concern is that there's going to be a backroom consensus, right? Where people are like, well, the normies don't matter, right? And I'm more concerned about that destroying the community than the specifics of the proposal. If we agree that a reallocation is the way we want to go, then I think we should all get involved with the proposal. I heard some of Noel's ideas. I think they're good too. I just think it's too early to go there, right? I'm curious even about gaming out how things might go, right? I don't care about people's bags. It's the last thing I care about. I care about Handshake. I care about the community. The price of HNS. I mean, is that what we're worried about? I mean, so
Investors are.
what investors, right?
Exactly.
So, you know,
Well,
it's
there's a lot of people
there's
at the bottom that put in just a couple $100 and have bought whatever names they can, and they've built out some sort of portfolio. Those are the people that seem to have the biggest concern, in my opinion.
Oh, and if it helps, by the way, I can give you some feedback. Saya has the same exact issue, though they have staff that fight back on the people saying that people are not investors. But Saya's trading and general get people a lot of times basically saying the same BS. So it's not just Handshake; it's a general psychological thing.
I think, and this was brought up earlier, I don't know if it was Sagen or no, it was Paul actually. The coin in the chain is a tool here, right? We're storing data. We're using the blockchain for a purpose, right? And so there are multiple parts to this. But again, I think going into individual proposals on this call, on the second public call, is too early. I want to hear people that are opposed to the reallocation, because if that doesn't get a voice, then we are going to have two chains, right? And I also want to say that's not all bad, right? Look at ETC and Ethereum. You know, you can either stay where you are or you can innovate. And I think anybody could fork at any time, right?
That's what I'm saying. If we all do nothing, eventually someone might come along and do something with it. The tech is good. The execution has been pretty shitty for this whole time. Nobody's really done much.
I feel like we want to get rid of the unallocated coins, even those that are not for redistributing it. Like, I speak to HNS Broker a lot in DMs. And so he's saying we got to get rid of this because it comes up every year. I mean, how many times have we talked about reallocating the airdrop? I've heard it at least 3 or 4 times over the history of this project. So I kind of feel like I vote personally for reallocating, but I would rather vote to burn than to not do anything, because it's true. It's going to keep getting brought up. People are going to come in, look at this unallocated airdrop and bring it up. It's going to keep getting brought up. I think it's going to just never, and it does stop investors. I've seen people come into the Telegram saying, what's this huge unallocated? Because other projects, it's a warning sign, right? If I join a normal crypto project and I see this huge unallocated amount, it's like the team or the investors are going to dump on me, right? So I don't like seeing it there personally, and it confuses people. I asked in the chat, I don't know, do we know when the last claim was made? I think there was some tools. I don't think it's been for a while.
I know Wolf right there in the bottom right corner just claimed his coins.
Most
people, yeah, because he just found out about it. I agree with you, though, that doing nothing is off the table. And I think it was Woodburn that said it made a good point on the last call that we're not in the same circumstances anymore. So I think there might be consensus on something has to change. Doing nothing, particularly now that we've already soft forked and we're already making changes. The game is on, right? This is HNS Broker I consider him a friend. And he is the one that brought the proposal to my awareness. And he has a voice that I think is valid. I would have to say, Mackie is saying something similar, right? Just do a soft fork, forget the investor claim, or excuse me, forget the dev claim or the reallocation, and just move on. I think Sajin's saying something like that. But it's I think we have to really honor that voice. We don't honor that
I
voice.
think if Mackey's got an opinion that he wants to share, he should maybe come on and share it. I mean,
Agreed.
Sajin here disagreeing, that's fine. And actually, what Sajin said wasn't bad either. But yeah, no, if Mackey wants to say something, fucking come here and say something then. Otherwise, we should disregard what he says. Like, if he's not willing to come and have a chat, then his opinion is worthless, in my opinion.
I would kind of categorize people on this call as the builder group, right? And I would kind of I hate to segregate our community, but I think some of the others that are maybe even HS Broker more represents the investor bucket. And I'd say Mackie represents the investor bucket, right? So if you put an investor hat on, you would most likely want to burn, right? Because you're very fearful it's going to tank the price and dilute the whole, coin supply. So I think
Yeah,
that's
but you have to
why
look at somebody like Mackie came in at the very beginning at like the 10 cents per coin or some shit like that. So I mean, you have to take what he says with a grain of salt, like, because I mean, he's down, 100% on his investment, basically. You know what I mean?
So
although
I
something
think
else in the tweet the store of value would be like Bitcoin and stuff like this, or maybe I didn't say like Bitcoin, but there was a tweet. We should probably refer to it, but he's also saying it would make the price go up. I feel like in some way he says it would make it more
I
valuable.
think everybody is on agreement that unclaimed funds lying around is just not okay. I mean, whether we want to reallocate or not, but I think we need to get rid of that. Is something that I think we can all. I think largely, I think we agree that thing lying around is not helping us one way or another. And if we get rid of it, it doesn't change anything in Handshake. It continues to be the true to its philosophy. Nothing changes. So I think that's one thing, low-hanging fruit we can just deal with.
Yeah, I feel
we get
both sides agree to that. I don't
fresh
think
money? We can think about it separately, maybe a little more deeply.
Right? I don't think is anybody really supportive of doing nothing? I think everybody's either voting for burn or for redistribution. I don't think anybody's saying to keep it.
I've seen some people just say leave it the fuck alone, like on Twitter or Discord or something. I've seen some.
Well,
leaving it alone. I definitely agree.
It's definitely the same effect as burning.
It's definitely burn or reallocate, in my opinion. There is
the
no
moment you leave it alone, nobody can claim it. So burning it doesn't change anything really.
I have some more abstract views, but yeah, even I can say doing nothing is a fucking mistake.
I agree. It doesn't do anything. It's just optics. That token lying there unclaimed is just bad optics from a marketing perception point of view.
It lying there is something that I don't really have an opinion on. I think burning is a waste of time. Kind of like what Eskimos agreed in the past, but if it's more of optics and people think it's equivalent to a VC chain, and like what Mike just said, that apparently people think that they come in and see like a one multi-million payload sitting there, and I think that's about to dump on them. I can see it perspective, though. Generally speaking, I don't really give a shit either way what happens to it if nothing's done. If the money isn't used, if the money isn't.
But is anybody buying HNS to like invest in HNS? Like, are there people like just sitting around trading HNS? I don't think so. So I mean, like, I don't think that view matters as much. It's
yeah, I
it's
think
a utility coin. It's not for that.
Yeah, I think people are just.
Somebody's gotta hold it. I hold HNS. I'll say it. I hold HNS.
Yeah, but what I mean is, like, there's people that actively sit home all day trading Bitcoin and shit like that. There's nobody just sitting home trading HNS, right?
No, I don't think so.
Like, so that's
fact,
what I'm
the
saying. It's a
situation is so
utility
bad.
coin. People shouldn't worry about it so much as if it were like some sort of investment coin, because it's really not. You're investing in the utility of the chain. You're investing in the protocol. You're investing in the names. You're not investing in the coin as a trading asset.
And that being said, a very good trading asset, because we are built on Handshake, and even for utility purposes, I have to hit up Michelini for HNS tokens. I can't really buy them in India. So if I need like 200 HNS tokens, I have to
Soon.
send money via PayPal
Dodger,
to
soon.
somebody.
I got
to
you.
get-
I got you. Don't worry.
Eskimo
We still got to respect the price. We still got to try to hold the price up. We
Okay.
can't just say I don't. The price drops to zero. Like we can't.
Oh, how
Even
do
though
you-
you're a
how
builder,
If it drops to zero, people would buy it like crazy. And if people are really that invested, there's a great quote. If you really love a stock, you want it to go down, right? People would buy it up if it dumped.
Oh,
Hey,
I would buy
hey,
so much dump.
hey, I
hold
read
Handshake,
about some 2.8 million tokens getting traded last month. I mean, I don't know if it's a rumor, if it's an actual thing. Was there a spike? Anyone, any idea who was it? A lot of tokens got
I did
bought
see a
over
lot
the
of. I did
There
see
is
a huge
OTC
volume
that
spike, but the price didn't really change much. I think it must have
Yeah.
been spread over a bit.
Most
It's
active
utility.
users
But the
people
main
start
problem
using the
with the
index.
price is the miners. The chain pays the miners to bring stability, really. That's what miners' job is. So if the miners aren't getting paid, then the chain stability will go down. And the problem with that is, you can have easier forks, you can have all sorts of other problems. At the moment, it's not that big a problem because there is a huge amount of miners. I don't know why mining Handshake.
Yeah, I kind of wonder what the hell's going on there too. Frankly, it's like
I
I
think
looked at the numbers and it's like negative $100 a month per miner to do it. It's like I'm questioning how the hell
Yeah.
they're profitable right now.
It's because their power costs are low and they make the machines. Listen, nobody's dumping all the coins in the beginning. I think this is where we sort of have to get oriented in reality a little bit. And why
I'm
I'm
not sure
saying
anyone that
let's
actually thinks we're doing that. Like I think the people who don't understand might be thinking that, but I don't think anyone who's a builder actually thinks we're going to be dumping like $1 million overnight.
well, I
So-
think
I
so
personally
let's-
don't
let's-
care. As long as Handshake still works, I don't care what the price. Like whatever.
Let's just play it out. Derek, I give you a million HNS to develop something on HNS. What are you going to do with that? You need it to pay your food? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to hold it? I give you a million
It's just
HNS
Skinny
right
and
now.
Bob.
If the price is frankly if the price is stable enough, I would slowly sell it to do what I need. But if it's basically going to be Doge or basically Shiba, I actually treat that very differently. But yeah, overall, I would need to be able to whatever resource I have for as an asset to live off. I'd have to actually be able to rely on it, frankly, and that's being pragmatic. That's why people care more short term about stable coins than any crypto asset. But yeah, if I had a million HNS and it wasn't going to shit, then yeah, I could probably slowly sell it and not fear that I'm going to go be broke tomorrow.
a million HNS
Yeah.
is like $15,000.
Well,
Yeah, but
yeah,
also, I think you have to look at it as like,
really well. Yeah, and if the price and the price goes back up, then that might actually pay my salary. But yeah, right.
But see, you also want to get people working on things that are actually like believe in the project too. You don't want to just hire people that don't give a shit. If they actually give a shit, then there's a good chance that they won't want to sell it and they'll try to hold on to it anyway. Like, because it's worth more to them in the long run as a free investment rather than let me sell this and put $100 in my pocket right now.
You know, it would be
For example, the who was it? Well, they did the developer fund. Was Open Systems? Yeah, I think that's it. You know, they pay 100,000 HNS. I've still got 90,000 of that. The other 10,000 is just been sold OTC to people on Telegram and stuff. I'm just using it to fund my development fees, you know?
Yeah.
I can now dev on mainnet.
That's what I'm saying. But you see the value in Handshake long term. And I feel like if we get if like people getting paid for bounties and stuff are more people like you that are building things and give a shit, then there's no reason to just dump it and sell it. It's way better off to hold it and hope that it fucking 1000x's in the next 15 years or something. You know what I mean?
I mean, even if 1000x
it's
is
a free investment. Imagine Apple came to you when they first started and say, "Hey, you want 100 free shares? Why not?" Just
HNS is definitely generational wealth stuff. If you can hold on to it.
That is one of the arguments. That's obviously one of the arguments for reallocation is that if you put it in the right hands, they're going to add value, right? And that's
Yes.
That's the idea. And guys like Woodburn, there's like 5 people here that can actually build on Handshake, right? We need those guys around, right?
Just wish
I wanna
Handshake
make
wasn't
sure
written Node.
I want to make sure Rithvik and Nodar and the people that can actually do the work are still here. I don't care about anybody's business, right? And you know, there's interesting methods for that. Bitcoin, you know, if you look at Blockstream was paying everybody in Bitcoin. They took every bit of their VC money, bought Bitcoin with it, right? So there are ways to get creative, but I think the key is keeping people like Woodburn, like Eskimo, like Paul, like Rithvik, like Nodar, like Zipkin, that can actually do something on the chain here, right? Everyone wants that. Everyone wants that. And when I think about a reallocation, and I think there's even some specifics around how this would be, and this is where, you know, we need to, as we move the conversation, and it may even be a little soon to go into this, because I want to really give respect to the camp. Let's do a soft fork, forget claims. That's the burn, right? And we just continue as we're doing because Handshake works. Now, why do I want to game that out? Because I want to look at that as, okay, that is a base level of what we're going to do. But like we all agree, that is the lowest common denominator here. We're not going to do nothing. At a very minimum, we're going to make sure that claims are done. We don't have those conversations anymore. Like H&S Brokers saying, it fixes the tokenomics. Everybody's happy. New investors coming in aren't worried about the mystery dump and where the coins went. However, and we can kind of like agree that we're going to at least do that. But let's game that out versus what if we have those coins, right? Handshake works. It already works. It works with the fear of the mystery airdrop, right? And it will continue to work if we just get rid of those coins, get rid of the argument. Wow, look at these guys. They're in. It's not this this system that isn't innovated on. We're actually innovating and doing things, changing the tokenomics, freeing names. Okay, we're in the game now. Let's calmly think about, okay, what happens if we do nothing? What happens if we do, and by nothing now, I think we've stepped it up to we just do a soft fork, no more claims. It's the equivalent of burning because we don't actually have to burn anything. And we continue moving in that. I think everybody wins there, right? We're all like, oh, that's great. That's actually a step forward. And we can kind of move forward in the conversation there. However, I want to entertain the possibilities of, okay, we do that, what happens? Versus let's all use our mind to consider what happens if we have those coins, right? What can we do if we have those coins versus if we don't have those coins? Can we actually make Handshake better? And then, you know, begin that conversation over time. We can take this in steps, like Sajin is saying, right? When Matt laid out, and I think this is still questionable, but this is why we need guys like Matt, because 90% of us have no idea, right? And I'm talking about Zipkin. He said, okay, it's a soft fork to finish the claims, then it's a hard fork to start to add coins to the block reward, and that's how it'll accumulate. However, when I talked to Andrew, he said, I think we can do the hard fork and just recoup all 900 million or 450 million. So there's a bit of a technical piece here. There's also strategy in that, because I think everybody would relax a little if the block reward just went up a bit, right? It doesn't take anything from the miners. We take what goes up in the block reward and put it aside and develop a war chest while we figure out how we actually want to manage this money. So you know, the question seems to have moved from, all right, doing nothing, no longer an option. Soft forking to finish the claims, we almost all agree on that, right? Because we're gonna do that in a minimum because we now know that that doing nothing is an option. But what we kind of need to entertain, and I want to push this to H&S Broker, I want to push this to the people who are in opposition, and this is where we move more toward the proposal. What happens if we do nothing? What happens? And by that now, I mean, we finish claims. There's no more claims. 68% of all the coins are mined. There's another 33% to be mined. Is that a better outcome potentially? And we can't predict the future. This is why I think we game it out a bit. What happens if we don't do that? Who pays Rithvik? Who's writing that? Who's writing that software anyway? Right?
Well, I mean, who's paying him now? Nobody.
This is no, that's not actually true. Okay.
Well, he had to get a job.
Yeah.
He's got a regular job right now. But
there you go.
It'd be great if people like him could be paid by like Handshake itself.
There you go. Right?
I think a lot of people don't know this. That's the problem. A lot of people don't know this. They just like read Twitter and maybe
that out there. Let's get that out there. Right? I mean, I know everybody we need the Bob wallet. Right? It's like, now do we rely on donations? I donated a large amount of money to pay Rithvik's salary for over a year. Right? To do that. Are we going to continue like that when we have a chance for reallocation? How many people know that? How many people
don't know this? People don't know this. I mean, the auctions helped support him, I think, too.
Exactly. Then people will say that this is just your way of trying to get paid back.
I don't want any money.
Argument. No, I know. I'm just saying everybody has some sort of shitty argument, no matter what the situation. You say something good, like saying I donated a bunch to fund Bob Wallet, and they'll find some way to shit on you for it and say, "Oh, he's just trying to get paid back now and Handshake, whatever."
What they don't know is that it's like get a job. Yeah. Rithvik had to go get a job because because of this. Because we don't have funding for normal protocol development.
Yeah, Impervious paid for a lot of core developers too for a while. I know there's a lot of people here that are angry with Impervious.
Exclusively, yeah.
Yeah, basically, that's from one way. That's the reason. One of the big reasons he had to go is because Impervious couldn't fund for some reason, and he moved on.
How much of Mike Carson's money are we going to take? Right? It's like that's the same thing.
Well, and it's the same thing whether it's Mike Carson, you, Richard, whatever. It's somebody's money until the money runs out, and then the next person comes around. And if you really look at it, one individual's money isn't bringing us anywhere. It gets us some stuff, but it's never going to be enough to bring us anywhere. One tiny step at a time is just not enough.
Multiple people have chipped in. Yeah, multiple people have chipped in. I mean, I've been in various chats where people are chipping in over the years. Like, Jesse, Impervious, Jahan. There was a Dweb Foundation, the auction proceeds. Everybody's been just chipping in money. And then there's people that complain like, oh, you're trying to steal money from the chain now or something, right? Like, they don't understand.
I think it'd go a long way if we promoted the fact that we have no protocol level development. Right? Except for the goodness of their heart. And this is and that's big because everyone would care about that. Everyone would care. Everyone that owns a TLD would be like, oh my God, is that true? Let's reallocate. Right? Look, we need Go ahead.
Go ahead. The other opposing person is Andrew C. or Andre. I think the two in my brain are that I listen to a lot, or H&S Broker and Andrew C. Andrew, so what is actually the second part of this topic is the bounties. Andrew C. is very generous. He's also chipping in. He put 5K into the Vietnam hackathon. He chipped in for some bounty that's happening right now about, I'm sorry, I haven't followed it. Paul was sharing it around on Twitter. I think he chipped in for that.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. It's for the Dane integration into Brave. And that can continue, right? Meaning when we game out, what's protocol level development going to look like if we don't reallocate? Well, you're going to be we're going to be reliant on the goodwill of people that are heavily invested, and that can work. It's worked till now. Is it optimal? Is it ideal? I actually think there's a proposal in this. I don't give a shit about name base. They've got plenty of money. No, I'm not asking for any money to Digitalis. That's a business. I care about
I think
Rick,
it's just, I
right?
think Namebase has been investing a lot lately, and I don't know if they're exact. I think everybody thinks they're so rich, but I don't think that's true.
I
but
think there's a lower level, there's a more important need here than making sure that. Now, there's an argument for giving name-based coins and them adding value to it. That's a whole other thing. But this is why I don't want to rush to these proposals, because there's a lot more information that I think should come out, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
The
There-
stuff
there-
about the protocol level development. This is what I care about. I honestly don't care at all about the who gets what, or other than that. I want to make sure that Handshake can keep running, that we have people here that can work on the chain, that could code a soft fork, that could code a hard fork, that we can upgrade and update when we need to. The economic interests are already there, right?
okay.
But Rithvik had to go take a job because we have no funding at the protocol level.
I think
I
there was
actually-
another point though, about him taking a job, to be honest. I think it was a mix of a couple things, but
Yeah, I would
Zipping
say
with
that
the chain code labs because Mike couldn't afford to pay him anymore, and there wasn't enough SLD revenue on Impervious to pay him. It's an economic reality.
The river
Yeah,
thing,
Matt.
I actually know it's a combination. 'Cause
let's
I've actually
Derek.
talked
Derek's
to-
gonna want to say something. Derek, do you want to go? Maybe share your other thought. You have some thoughts. I know you've been
Yeah,
waiting
I'll
to share.
say first I'll say real quick, the Rivik thing is a mixture of factors. I've actually talked to him because he was going to work on the Dex software, but then that changed and he had some personal choices that he told me. So I don't just think it's the fact that Handshake is broke. It's just he also made some decisions himself that he decided to do other things at the same time, which is unfortunate, but that was his choice. Yeah. So regarding what I thought, my thoughts on this, I see it, and I'll just say that first, I don't talk in voice often because my text communication is a lot better, and I ramble among other things. So that's why you don't hear from me often, or hardly ever. But I have been following a lot of this and seeing a lot of abstract, big picture things for the past couple of weeks, and in all honesty, I don't really give a shit about if we have a hard fork or not. So as much as I look at the macro, and the macro is coming from just my experience being in the industry for a couple years now, and it's just the blunt truth: the handshake is broke. And what it comes down to is everybody wants to fix it, but they don't really agree or know how. And there's been a lot of shit posting. There's been a lot of mudslinging. There's been a lot of crap on the chat for the past couple weeks, frankly. And yeah, and if you notice that I'm not so much a blag, I just speak it how it is. So what I see in the big picture is that realistically, I do not see doing anything that's actually ever happening. Frankly, I think burning is a waste of time unless it's like a purity, it's like BTC, it's like a Bitcoin purity test. Like for the maxis, like it doesn't really do shit unless you want to consider the CT narratives. So that's why I think burning's a waste of time. But generally speaking, because people have been spoken out, and I think frankly the people who have been speaking out are the people who just aren't in chat. Like I think really everyone here is mostly pro, but it's basically like the traders who might be shit posting a troll box who are basically saying that don't burn, don't burn, to say don't reallocate. It's really mostly the people who are not deeply involved, as what Mike says is investors. But what I would say is that in the big picture of doing this, I've actually, and some of you know this, so I have been paying attention. I've actually been, and considering I was the one that opened the bounty post in the first place, been trying to come up with different solutions because in the abstract, I decided when you follow the crypto the crypto saying when in doubt, zoom out. For me, the abstract is everything else doesn't matter. Handshake is broke. It's frankly the reason it's the reason I had to go to Saya to get money. We need to solve that. Like Ice View, like Bounties, Hard Fork, that's relevant to me however it happens. What matters is how the hell does Handshake get money? And so that's really all I give a shit about. How the hell we just solve the problem? Because there's a lot of things that need to get done. We could spend the next 5 years going slow crawl. I mean, I'm trying to do my own way to get things done, but well, obviously I'm broke. A lot of people here are broke, and there's only like a handful of people who have money. And the people who have money haven't been contributing to R&D, because if they did, we wouldn't be here and talking right now. So my view is that I've been trying to make different solutions and talking to various people here about just random thoughts as well. And it comes down to hard fork. It comes down to I've also been trying to think in the bigger picture, that even why do you even give a shit about H&S to raise money? That I've been talking in the chat about an open collective about trad funding. I've been there's also the bounties. So it's like my view is that is that in the macro we need to just figure out how are we going to get people paid for we can get moving more than we should be asking about if we do a hard fork at all, or even a hard fork even if it matters. Like, the real macro question is how are we going to get money in the handshake to pay people to do the things that are considered normal now and status quo and are changed that we're too broke to do it. That's really what I see.
So, babe, that's why I brought up the bounties. That's why I brought up the bounties, because basically H&S broker talks to me in DM a lot, and he's like, "See, look, we got money. There's people posting for the bounty." And he sends me the link.
Is he talking about the bounties I created on the
It's like
in the
not even
or-
$100, wasn't it?
No, Mike,
No,
are you
wasn't
talking
that
about the
like
bounties?
2,000 handshake or something?
Yeah, are you talking about the bounties on the post I made?
Yeah. That
I'm
was
just
Yeah. To be clear, I created the bounties.
I agree with
created-
you, but I'm
Yeah,
speaking up for the others that are not
Yeah,
here. I'm trying to represent
those bounties I actually created as a principle as to make a point, because I get there's a lot of naysayers about no hard fork. I created those bounties to prove a point to the people who don't want it, to say, hey, if you don't want a hard fork, fund the shit. Like, and so there's $2,000 from like 4 people so far on there. And so yeah, H&S broker.
Wait, hang on. Is it $2,000 or 2,000 H&S?
No, it's 2,000. I thought it was $2,000 on one thing from like 4 people. 4 people did like a $500 things, but 4 people. But that's 4 people. How many people are gonna be able to donate $500? Like right now, like
Well,
my
the
view.
biggest handshake investors don't even have $500 in handshake, probably.
It's like there's people in this community that could definitely fund, but are choosing not to. And that's why, and I've been screaming that for a fucking year. Like, that's what frustrates me the most, is the people that they could but don't. And so, and if they would, we wouldn't be here. So my view is why I've been trying so if H&S broker wants to say, see, we don't need a hard fork, we have bounties. Yeah, I created FM bounties to prove a point about that if we do our need or not. It's been a week and you have $2,000, but it's like now if we had like $30,000, that might be a difference. But we 2,004 people saying that, and then 4 people in Discord, everyone else is ghosted. So my view is that is abstract about how do we solve the money problem. That's also why I ended up creating a bigger abstract picture of just raise the money normally with open collective, and that has spawned a lot of other discussions about how to do that, which I also think can tie into consensus problems. But it's really overall we need to
If we have a pot of money, a reallocation, then we can bounty what we want done, right? And people can we can do a request for proposal. A bunch of people apply, including, Kyokan or whatever dev companies do it. And then we're doing, we're not trying to agree on, we can take a look at what we think we actually need, right? And decide as a community what we would want a bounty. And so, the bounties can be done in different ways. We can raise a little money here and there. Nathan is putting the idea of a DAO in there. You know, I guess
Well, that way with the DAO,
Well,
you don't have
that's fine.
to have a
The DAO
hard
is a
fork
multi-sig.
to allocate the funds. So
They-
with the current process, if we wanted to do it, or you can either do a hard fork like now or the next hard fork, as we're going to donate this much to this project, this to this to this to this. The problem with that is that's a once-off hard fork. Whereas if you've got a DAO, that can like evolve over time.
Frankly, how is a hard fork? How is a multi-sig any different from a DAO, more or less, except for if you want to consider Ethereum on-chain governance, which has never been BTC's culture.
Same diff, multi-sig DAO.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is basically what's already been discussed as a multi-sig. So it's like that's just semantics.
Yes, it's just that if we do it like a proposal directly from a hard fork, that will delay any funding by 6 to 12 months. So say
Okay, sorry.
we want to create, a DEX, we would have to create, a hard fork, have to wait for people to, the community to vote on it, have to wait for miners to vote on it, have to wait for miners to apply the change, have to wait for the fork to actually happen. Whereas if we were going to go now and go DAO now gets, X million HNS, the community still has to vote before the DAO will actually do anything.
Where does that come from? That's what I'm getting. That's what That's what I'm not getting. Where if you're something, you're saying a DAO versus a hard fork, but where's the money coming from in the if it's not a hard fork?
The DAO would be funded by the hard fork, but it's a once-off funding for the DAO rather than a proposal-based. So the hard fork funds is going to the DAO rather than directly to the proposal. That way, we can limit the amount of hard fork, the amount of effort the hard fork actually takes.
Wait, what?
Sorry,
Alex,
Alex has been waiting patiently to say something, and I'm curious about other perspectives on this, including Namebase. But I know that he's ready to go, and Mike is giving him the space here.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm not speaking for Namebase here. I'm just sharing my thoughts and looking at this from a product perspective. I think that there are 3 or 4 parts to this, right? We have the coin situation, we have the money situation, essentially the coins that are being held or not being used for anything. We have the utility part, so that's part number 3, and part number 4 is the community. Now, from what I feel, the price of starting with the price of the coin, I believe the price of the coin has gone way down because there has not been as much activity on chain as there was in the beginning. So when I got into Handshake, it was like at 50 cents or 60 cents. And it was right in the beginning, and there was a lot of activity. There was a lot of hype. And I believe that one part of it is that there's not a lot of usage on chain for the coin to be at a price we would like it to be. The second part, which is the money, I agree with Nathan. I believe that the best thing we could do is reallocate the coins to a DAO. And the difference between a DAO and a multi-sig is that essentially we would have some sort of cooperation that would allow for partnerships to happen officially. Now, I know there's a lot of things happening. Sorry?
You say cooperation or incorporation? Do you mean an actual legal entity?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just making sure I heard you right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, the biggest problem of Handshake is that it's too decentralized, and it should be a little bit less decentralized for us to have the opportunity to collaborate with other people, with new partners. I've seen a lot of people going into the Telegram asking like, "Who is the owner of Handshake? Who can we speak to?" And saying like, "Hey, you can speak here, and if you want a job, you can simply build." That's not gonna work for people that are from
Those
outside
people
of
are the scammers,
HNS.
though. They're not actually trying to like get hired to build something. They're trying to get you to like give them money, and then
Well, that's not
run
the
away.
point. That's not the point. The point is that there is no like there's not a single entity or focus that can help them to be a part of this, or to at least collaborate with us. And I
Basically, what
know,
you're saying is, oh, sorry.
yeah, well, I was just gonna say that one of the benefits of having a DAO would be helping external people, external organizations get into Handshake.
Hello.
The
What I would
second
say is
part,
what I would say is basically you're basically saying more or less become what Sai is doing. That's what I see. Which is I've also given information on that. So yeah.
Well, let's let him.
It's also
Yeah.
it's
Sorry.
what most
I'd like to
blockchains
hear
do.
what he has to say. I'd like to hear what Alex has to say.
yeah, the last part I was gonna speak on is the utility part, right? So I believe that having the bounties is a cool initiative, but it's not enough, regardless of whether it's $2,000 or 50,000. I think it's not enough to bring external people into Handshake and to start building more utility to Handshake. You know, as a TLD owner selling SLDs, that is giving utility, but in reality, we need them to either resolve or to work as usernames or identities, and they have the ability to do so, but we need a product to be the middleman to allow people to do this, to allow people to actually use Handshake. And I believe that, in my opinion, if we had a DAO, we would have to focus on these three essential points, which is utility of the coin, number one, having more movement on chain, which is why I liked the idea that Andrew Lee spoke about having L2s and enabling smart contracts. The second part is having a DAO, so a trusted group of people that are not in it for the money itself, but mostly for the improvement of the chain. And secondly, allowing this DAO to fund partnerships and utility. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Specifics on that would have to be like obviously discussed. I don't have all the answers, but yeah, my feelings is that if we work on these 3 points, the fourth point, which is community, will eventually grow. So yeah, so point number one is the coin value. Point number two is having a DAO, and point number three, utility, and obviously community.
I think for the DAO, technically, it's not possible in Handshake as a proof of work, as far as I understand.
Alex, there's actually something that came to mind from what you're saying that. Mike, a DAO depends. I guess a DAO it really depends on how you define it. No, you cannot really do that because that's like trying to run and that's like trying to run an Ethereum group on top of Bitcoin. It doesn't work. It's just like it's across the universe. Alex, one thing that you said this came to mind is that you mentioned about an LLC. The one thing that's I'm not sure who mentioned this to me, but the idea came up a while ago that I actually am slightly concerned now about if you actually have an LLC. Honestly, a little bit is compared to what I have with Saya is that the fact is that Handshake's value is the on-chain records, and having a central entity at the same time could present pressure for them to censor on-chain record. Messiah is like everything's off-chain, so it's not less of a problem. But if you have some highly valuable NFT or domain, and an LLC gets a hush letter, then yeah, I can see that being a real problematic of the government trying to use that to control the chain because they're actually controlling the on-chain assets via forcing a hard fork than anything else. And that's generally speaking, I'm mostly in pro of a charity for Handshake, but that is one thing I would think as a devil's advocate that would be kind of bad if all of a sudden the chain got taken over because
Yeah, but we're
they-
community members. We have nothing to do with the actual official blockchain
Yeah.
itself. I mean,
Yeah,
having a LLC just saying we're going to fund development, that doesn't mean we control the chain.
But the
Mhm.
problem is that if you have, but you're basically giving the government a point of attack to Handshake, even if it means you have to hard fork. You're giving them
No,
a place where they can.
we're just a development team that's receiving
Uh,
funding from the chain. I mean, that's not.
What I'm saying is that if everyone trusts that foundation, it's like any other foundation that everybody upgrades and stuff. Like there might be the same, but you're giving a potential risk
No.
of you're giving a potential risk of the government fucking with the chain because the foundation is basically giving a centralized
Yeah.
trad point.
But,
So,
it would be the same thing as like Impervious if Impervious were to get funding from the chain. They're their own company. They're not Handshake. This organization or DAO or whatever the hell it would be wouldn't be Handshake. You could simply just tell the government, fuck off.
No, it would.
But I mean,
No, it would.
well, he's not the only one that's been saying this. Others have said this too.
It's not the same because Impervious is running an Ethereum registry. The only thing they have authority to entrust is their own product. If you have a foundation that everybody trusts, like everybody trusts Saya, if Saya releases a new software update, everyone's going to use it without question. It's about the trusted root of human trust.
Zipkin was like the only core developer for this whole time, and he was funded by Impervious. Does that mean Impervious owns Handshake? Does that mean the government's going to go after Impervious? It just doesn't make any sense.
No, it does because if there was pressure, it's the economic pressure and in the sense the legal pressure, the fact that it's effing state that they go and say do this or you're in jail, and everyone trusts that entity to do so, to be managing and being the steward. Yes, there is a problem there. Everyone can hard fork, but not before people might realize it, especially if they can't actually say anything, because it's like it's like what you call canary warning. SIA actually puts canaries every quarter in their reports due to that. But Handshake has a bit of a worse situation because what's valuable about Handshake is actually the blockchain, not everything is off chain. And so I do see a bit of a problem with that. Outside that, I am in favor of a foundation, but that is one devil's advocate thing I do see as a problem.
Hey, Derek.
We should read about hijacking Bitcoin, Roger Ver, if you want. I mean, I think he even got arrested because of that book.
I see a lot about that on Twitter. I honestly kind of ignore all that noise on Twitter, but yes, I know there's a blockchain transfer versus hijacking blockchain PvP story. I'm aware of that.
Anyway, I think we are limited time today. I think the point is that there is going to be more centralization. I think nobody can disagree. This isn't to create more centralization. I think there's no argument there. This will create more centralization. Like we said, there will be somebody in Telegram now that will say, oh, talk to this person, when there's going to be some random spammer saying, I want to get a funding. We're not going to be able to say, oh, don't talk to anybody. Like now we're going to say, talk to somebody.
Centralization is not bad.
You send them a link to a thing to submit a proposal. That's it. You say, here's a website. You can see our bounties.
The truth is that we are in Web 2.5.
Pretty much.
And to get to Web 3 is still a long way to go.
Yep.
So if you want to make partnerships, listings, hire devs, hire marketers, we need a company or whatever to make it happen.
Jesse was trying to say something before, by the way.
I was just
He's been trying for a while now.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the Migs has been waiting patiently.
Oh, sorry, Alex. Sorry. Apologies.
Yeah, no, I have a couple thoughts. First of all, I'm really grateful that everybody's here. I'm gonna need 2 minutes. All right, that's it, and then I'll shut up. But my role in Handshake has been to facilitate. I try to push things along. That is the best thing I do. I try to travel to events. I try to push things along. I try to put out content. So in the spirit of that, I definitely agree we are very far away from being able to hammer out an actual strategy moving forward, but there are a few things that come to my mind. And at the risk of marginalizing myself or labeling myself, I'm going to be pretty brash here. One is inaction is not an answer. If it was, it would already be known. I think action is required. And I have come to this conclusion after a lot of time, and I've switched sides on myself to come to that conclusion. For what that's worth, that's what I think. The other thing I think is that Andrew is very right with what he said earlier. Coins are energy, and I couldn't care less about what the value is. I just want that energy to be concentrated in a direction that is moving somewhere. Might be forward, might be backwards first and then forward, but it needs to get used, because inaction is not the answer, right? And perception also doesn't matter from people that are not involved in Handshake or are not willing to be actively involved in these conversations. I really could not care less what their perception is. What we need is development, and I don't really believe a lot in great new ideas. I don't think great new ideas come around very often. I really think it's always recycling of old ideas. And these funds were allocated for developers. It's called the developer airdrop. Why do we need developers? Because you need development. Development creates value, right? You can create a city in the middle of the desert, right, and create a bunch of value. It's called Las Vegas, right? It doesn't need to have a lot of like things going for it, but if there's development, there's value, right? And if there is value, there's growth, right? And there's attraction. And that's what it is. We need more developers. We need more Rithvik. We need more action. We need more people that are pushing the chain in some sort of direction, right? If you create DAOs, are they going to be targets? Sure, they're going to be great targets. How many people have been arrested in association with Bitcoin? Millions, right? Is it going to be a target? Sure. Can they control the chain? No. That's the beauty of Handshake. We all believe in that. It's a proof of work blockchain. It's decentralized. Action and movement in some direction is going to be necessary. Stagnation is not the answer. And I would rather trust somebody than nobody for sure, even if that means creating a DAO or creating a group of individuals that we need to trust. The last thing I would leave is going back to the idea of like new ideas are not always great ideas. Is I have worked for startups for multiple years. And whether I like it or not, a big way that I'm incentivized to work for startups is through a vesting schedule. I am incentivized to create value today so that I can cash out tomorrow. If they gave me all that value today, I would just cash out today, probably, right? It doesn't matter how much I love. So I need to be aligned with the growth and the value of the development. I need to be aligned with the development that's going to create value over an extended period of time. So I don't think you distribute anything all at once. I do think that centralization is scary, especially to this room, but it all comes with an enormous responsibility. And I'm about to shut up, I promise. But like we're going to have to pick some bigger heads. We're going to have to trust them to some extent for some period of time and align their incentives with the overall growth of the chain. I don't see any other options. And hopefully adoption will come in many ways. Developer adoption, TLD adoption. And the very, very last thing is if you're going to hard fork the chain, you are creating a new chain. A software update on a proof of work blockchain is a new chain. What you cannot mess with is the TLDs, right? Those TLDs are allocated to the people that own them. You can reallocate the funds, right? Those are my different thoughts. A lot of different directions there.
That was great. I think the vesting is a really important point in this. I think you made a great point there, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's true though. I mean, I think in the current situation, to be upfront, I think sometimes the problem with blockchain and I've seen other chains now doing like Optimism does. You get the grant after it's done. I forget what they call it, but they don't give you the money up front.
It's called retroactive funding. I'm kind of critical of that in some ways because for me, if that was done, I wouldn't be able to be funded, frankly. But I do get why they do it for some people that can help it. So yeah, and I see both sides of the story on that, but I am kind of critical of retroactive because it doesn't feed you now, frankly, for the people who need to be realistic. But it's called retro funding, and their community kind of has had a shit show because I've actually followed one of the people that used to be involved in governments who wasn't happy with how it was operating, and they actually resigned. I followed a lot of chatter about that, but yeah, it's called retroactive.
You know, a couple things now that we're at 2 hours here. I'm thinking a few things. Do we continue to have these almost weekly? I remember when ETC was contemplating various proposals, there were basically weekly calls for each proposal, right? And so we could give the time, because I'm thinking about Andrew and Noel, and giving, first of all, letting us kind of familiarize ourselves with the proposal, and then being able to discuss the specifics, give enough time to go deeply into these things, because there are some points in Andrew's proposal, No's proposal, that I want to make sure there's space for us to all comprehend, because really we are talking about the people who care about Handshake the most, and we're all part of organizations that are already building on Handshake. There are the people here, Rithvik, Nodars, those guys that will do protocol development, and we'll make sure they're taken care of. But how do we activate the organizations that are currently building on Handshake? And I think Andrew's proposal, No's proposal are discussing that. And I think too, as I say that, I think, do we give more space to the let's not reallocate camp? Do we need to have another call where all the folks that are opposed to the reallocation have the time and space to an open conversation about why we shouldn't reallocate? Because still, when I talk to them, they say, hey, if we reallocate, I'm done, I'm out. And these are people I care about and have worked with for 5 years. So I want to make sure that voice is heard. And they could be here tonight. Maybe it's 6 a.m. there, 5 a.m. there, or whatever. But as we're at 2 hours, I think we're getting into some really interesting stuff that needs a lot of space, right? Because if we do decide to do a reallocation in a proposal, there's going to be multiple proposals. There's going to be input that multiple people have, and we're going to want to craft something really awesome, which I think can take months, right? Or will take months. I'm curious because when I talk to most people, there is a huge amount of consensus for a reallocation. When I talk to Andrew or whomever, it's like there's a 95% reallocation consensus. And at the same time, if you look at the voting on GitHub, it's not 95%, right? It's more around 40%. And there's no threshold on Bitcoin that's ever existed that was that low, right? No one would make a change with a 60% threshold. So do we, and this is more of a question, do we provide more space for that conversation? Or do we just decide, okay, we're going to move into reallocation specific proposal conversations?
What I would actually say is that I actually would be very much in favor of actually having conversations. These are almost like a rarity that they even happen at all. Like, quite frankly, sometimes I actually get really pessimistic and think, okay, is Handshake still alive because the chat's so dead? And then apparently there's like 15 people still doing things that aren't talking. And so right now I get my gut is that I see Mike, Migs, and Apo basically being the the working people, facilitators, actually making like this stuff happen socially, and that's the only reason we're here right now. And everyone else is building.
Yeah.
So so we're going to have calls every week. You three need to make it happen because I don't think anyone else is.
I mean, there's other quieter people, just because we're up here on stage with our video on, not meaning there's not
Well, it's not
others.
just that. It's that I've been here years now. I have a good idea of personalities and people of where their skills at being extrovert, introvert, and such. and I can generally idea of like I can generally get my intuition tells me who the people are. They're doing they're getting people to work together. In fact, it makes is the one making an announcement. And you're basically the marketer, and Pablo is obviously doing things behind the scenes. I don't know what he's doing, but I know he is talking to people. Those that tells me a lot, and that tells me if it wasn't for those you three people, we probably wouldn't be having this call at all.
I think it warrants, listen, I think if we all agree that we should continue the conversation, it should be open. I'm not sure that it's the decentralized, I'm not going to say that's what Miggs and Santiago want to do with their podcast, but I think we could, as a community, decide that we're going to have this weekly community call or bi-weekly or something where we come together and discuss. It's infinitely more efficient than a bunch of text on a Discord.
Yeah, it's more efficient, but at the same time, it's something that I feel we're all scattered and nobody is actually has been coordinating. I mean, frankly, we used to have the Mike used to be doing all the auctions and stuff, and with his marketing company. But it's like I don't know if he's been busy with business or what's been going on. But it's quite clear that a lot of the activity that he's been pushing stopped. And that was pretty much the only community momentum that's been happening. I mean, I might be an introvert, but I can see a lot of things, even if I don't speak, even if I speak differently about them. I can see all what's going on, and I can know that there's been a huge mood shift, and that's because that's because the networking people haven't been pushing.
Well, you need
I mean,
buyers to
auction-
buy names in
Well,
order for the auctions to go on.
The auctions were an example. It's a bigger picture that in the abstract that I have that like things just had just kind of halted on the community aspect things, and the fact that you have first of all, I feel like you have less people in Handshake's chat right now than you do in Saya's. And Saya, it gets a lot of criticism as it is. So
Well, let's
I can
disagree.
so I don't know why. So while I can't exactly pinpoint it, I'm just saying my intuition is screaming to me that there's something changed.
The buying slowed down on the secondary market. So like auction wise, I'm assuming Mike probably isn't running them as frequently because there aren't that many buyers. The names aren't selling for much, so there aren't many sellers as well, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, as I said the auctions were an example. It's a bigger picture that Mike's since I've been here. Mike has been the de facto biz dev community person since I literally went to the first HandyCon.
Well, everything he does is based on what other people are doing. If people want to sell high value names, he puts on auctions. If people release new projects, he makes a video about the projects.
Yeah,
I mean, if there's nothing going on, there's nothing for him to do.
I get that point. I also see that some of that is in the background and not exactly visible. So it's like why that information as well is not even known what exactly is happening. There are certain people in there's people in the community that basically have the role of marketer and a networker. But the fact that hasn't been happening, and we're only in the call now, and maybe
there has to be stuff to market, though. That's the thing.
You know, just
there's nothing to market.
If we can get back on the point here, that
sorry,
it's okay.
I think you guys were focusing on what I was saying too, literally not the abstract principle.
I'm talking about the fact that we've been on here for 2 hours now, and I think this is the beginning, kind of like we said last week. We're starting an important conversation that requires a lot of space. I see Alex here saying, "Don't disregard Namebase." So I want to make a statement. I'm not disregarding Namebase. I think there are more fundamental issues like protocol level development, but I want to get into more of the proposal piece with some real granularity and be able to dig into that. And so, if I think we could agree as a community here to do some sort of weekly or bi-weekly meeting where that's specifically focused on this reallocation and we're able to have the information beforehand so we can all educate ourselves and have an educated decision about what the proposal looks like. And then we can discuss the specifics, because it warrants that time and space. I was reading through Andrew's proposal, and it took me some time and even follow-up conversations to really comprehend the why in it. And so, like Alex is saying, don't disregard Namebase, whomever, but what I'm trying to say is, can we come back next week at a time? Can we come back in 2 weeks at a time where we can get deeper into these proposals, where we can get a lot of our heads into this, and we have some prep time beforehand? I don't want to volunteer Migs and Santiago, although I'm very thankful they're doing this. But Derek, you and I could decide to do it. But it's really, if people are putting forth proposals like Paul, like Andrew, like Noel, I want to hear them. I want to read them first, and I want to hear everybody talk about them and pull apart things. Why should Namebase get some of the money? Why should Shake Station get it? Why should Sky include? And whatever the specific. Okay, Santiago says he's happy to organize the next session in
Thank
2
you.
weeks. Perfect. So that's good. I think if we promote that, right, and we start to, because what I'm hearing is that the allocation ship is sailing, right? And if folks want to speak their mind about, not doing the reallocation, then the time is now. And so I hope they're going to listen to this, because there's sort of the train is moving. And, I think if that decision, if there's consensus that we're going to go ahead and reallocate, then we can get more into the specifics of the proposal. So I guess, it's not, this time worked for a lot of people. Maybe there's other times, but I'm sure Santiago and Migs can handle that.
One thing I'd actually like to get everyone's opinions on while you guys aren't here, because this is obviously something I came up with recently. I really have no idea. I want to know. I want to know realistically if this is if it's wasted energy. Like, assuming we actually have any actual marketing effort, if it would actually make sense to try to push some sort of open collective shred version of funding things via donations, and as a group, as a either either or in parallel to the Hark Fork conversations of getting just like where people just literally pay with a credit card, donate $30, and like all the normies and the people who aren't as involved, they just want to give a bit of money, can just and then on the trad side of things in the abstract, I said it's more about the getting the money than how you do it. And I've been trying to come up with different ways because everyone's just been like basically throwing mud, and I don't know if that's even a waste of time or not. So I just want anyone else's opinions on that, because while I probably have like 16 people here.
I think realistically speaking, it's not going to get
that's a waste of time.
much. Yeah,
Sorry,
we'd get a couple $100. It wouldn't fund a single thing we need.
Yeah, well, not in the short term, but I think that
Long term, literally 10 years from now, it will bring in a maximum of $1,000. There's just no chance.
So you basically think that there's no point in trying to get anyone outside, anyone at normal thing to donate anything at all. Because I just generally saw that
it's not going to happen.
I just generally saw that the people who were day slaying, well, it's like if people wanted that would be a route. Like so yeah, I just wanted your opinion because I just thought about that, because it's like the abstract problem is we need money. And everyone's just thinking in crypto terms, like, and from what I'm trying, and ironic for me, I'm actually thinking in trad terms, like, how would you
look, the naysayers are just naysayers. They have the money in, but they're not going to donate money to make anything happen. They want their bags magically filled and their money, their crypto to magically be worth 100x. They'll never do anything to make it happen.
So
yeah, I'm gonna
so generally
Derek,
speaking,
yeah.
So generally speaking,
What'd you say, Mike?
I'm gonna have to wrap up, but it's also an interesting point. We or the community gave money to a lot of those open source projects, right? I think it was like $10 million split out all over these open source developer funds. I don't know if anybody's ever contacted any of them. I don't want to say give us money back, but give us money now. But that could be a start. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Derek, but
yeah, for better or worse, Namebase is Coinbase. We can love to hate Coinbase because it's controversial in the crypto space, but but it is introvert. I can't agree on that.
That's you're I think misunderstanding what I meant, but it's
Both name-based and Coinbase aren't perfect, but and such, and there have been problems probably from both Bitcoin and from Handshake with the centralized exchange being with them both basically being the leader. But we need them.
The centralization isn't the problem. The problem is that they're trying to operate as a business, and a Handshake isn't big enough to have a business be profitable at this time. That's what it really comes down to.
Well,
Being centralized isn't the issue.
Well, yeah, it was. Yeah, I think you might mention me, but yeah, but frankly, that's Richard's problem.
But you know,
But
that's
it is.
I just don't want to subsidize. I just don't want to subsidize somebody's business. Right?
Yeah,
I
love name-based.
that's a hard no for me. Like
I love
if anyone-
name-based, and everyone here has benefited greatly from it. There's no
We've
doubt
all
about
we've
it.
all used it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just
and
when I say it's just subsidizing a business I don't want to do. That's all. That's why
They're a
that's what
business, they try to make money. If they're not profitable, they need to do something to become profitable, and donating money to them isn't the answer.
Well, I want to thank everyone. Migs, Santiago, everyone here. This is awesome. I think this is bullish for Handshake. Coin price aside, I think it's great that we're here, and I'm grateful for the engagement. I think this is a reflection of success, right? It's 5 years later. It's a tremendous opportunity for us. I'm still in shock that the reallocation conversation is happening. And, you know, at the same time, what comes to my mind, the opposition, right? I want to give them the respect. I want to give them space, but I also want to really deeply hear these different proposals. And and I look forward to that. I know in the beginning, and there maybe the intent was to go deeper into Andrew and Noel's proposal, but I think really by doing this and kind of laying the groundwork to go deeper into that, we're gonna be able to do that more fully. So, you know, I too am gonna jump off. I thank everyone. I'm still infinitely patient with this, and you know, I just want to encourage us to be thoughtful and think long term. Long term thinking is like a superpower, right? It's a level of cognitive development. And I want to encourage us all to be patient and think long term. Handshake is too important to humanity. I don't think it's a small thing. I think it's a potentially huge thing. I'm honored to be a part of the conversation, and I just want to give it that respect. I want to give everybody's perspectives the respect that they deserve, and really see how this plays out over the next several months.
Great.
I'm personally not surprised that that this is happening, because honestly, no one. I don't think any builder can really disagree, and frankly, everybody who is against it isn't here. So I'm frankly not surprised that this is. So to me, this is almost kind of a given, because it's like everybody who agrees is basically talking right now. So I'm not really that
I
surprised.
mean, this has been brought up a few times in the past, Derek. Last year, it was brought up by Daniel Harrison, I think, or was that 2 years ago? And then even Dweb Foundation was discussing something like this, I think in 21 or 22. And I think others have brought up this, but it was much more violently, I would call, just shot down by the community.
So
But I
basically,
feel like
so basically, people said GFY in private, but no one's actually, but it didn't, but no one's actually said it in public.
Chango said it in public, and I thought it was revolutionary, but it was considered heresy at that time.
Yeah, remember that?
So basically, everyone's saying go fuck yourself in private to a hard fork decentralization, but no one's actually decided to say it till now. I guess that's why, because I haven't been in half the conversations. So yeah, all I see is about 15, 16 people who say, "Yay, let's move forward," and everybody who isn't is probably either maybe 5 people are saying no that matter, and then probably 1,000 people who don't fucking matter.
I think to summarize it, it was shot down so strongly, so quickly, you might not even heard it. It was mentioned by Chingo, and it was so strongly shot down immediately. It
Yeah,
didn't even care.
I think I've actually saw some of that. There's like, did everyone compared it to Bitcoin? A lot of people in the Telegram chat, maybe up to a year ago, or at least 6 months ago, when I was looking at, people were basically like heavily shitting on it badly, and yeah,
The timing was different. It was too early. We still wanted to give space to the developer claim to see if it worked. It was a revolutionary mention by her, and I still think about it. But now the times have changed. We've started to intervene. We released some names. It's like we've loosened up a bit. And so it's just the conversation has ripened. And, you know, now is the time.
I saw Andrew unmute. Do you have something to say, Andrew? I'm trying to monitor and make sure everybody's. I don't hear you though. I see you unmuted, but I don't hear. I don't know if it's just me.
No, I don't hear him either.
Yeah, nobody seems to be hearing you, Andrew, if you're speaking.
Well, yeah, no, I appreciate that.
There you are.
Oh, now I heard you. Oh, you're muted again, but.
Yeah. Is my mic working now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we've generally come to a consensus about kind of some of the more options here, reallocating versus burning the coins versus doing something else with it, it seems like the next step is to coalesce around, or really be thinking about what's the long-term vision for Handshake. Is the vision changing from the original thesis? And I guess the status quo, do nothing approach is the one that we have consensus kind of against doing. But in that sense, how is the vision changing? And is there consensus around these visions? Could you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I heard you.
I'm literally and I think once we, to the people on the call that we're talking about like funding for development and things like that, well, what's the long-term vision around the projects that you're trying to fund or build or what have you? Because really people buy into visions. They buy into the coin, they buy into the name, they buy into all these things. And the vision is kind of the selling point around the community. And then the vision is probably the next step. We're like, hey, as a community, we're thinking we need to reallocate these coins, we need to change some things about it. But where is this headed? And once we coalesce around a vision, we can start explaining the vision to the wider community, to the public, saying, hey, this is the vision that Handshake's going in, and really capture, kind of grow the community, align developers, creators, investors all along, all around a common vision. I suspect the alternative, which is putting it all in a multi-sig and just having people come up with different projects they want to fund. The issue is that could be one direction that we decide to go as a community, but some of the potential risk is these projects having disparate visions and scattering a small community even further. And so in order to kind of harness everything, harness everybody's intentionality, capital, energy, there should be a shared vision we coalesce around, and maybe in the next discussion we can start talking about what are how we all imagine the future of Handshake.
Two things. One, vision, you're up, Mike. Two, I think there might be confusion, or I might miss the memo, but I'm not sure where the concern is about multi-sig and funding things that don't align with Handshake, because I don't think because it's like I don't think you actually it's been mentioned about funding grand projects like I'm not asking anyone to fund Loom, for example. Everything's been asked to be funded. It's literally like ecosystem public goods, like browser support, decks, different implementations of the node software. Like no one's actually is asking the public to fund separate actual projects with their own identity, just things that are that the ecosystem itself needs. I'm not
I
sure
don't think
where. I don't
I
think
don't know if
anyone's actually
Angelo
said that.
clarified. I
Yeah,
think
I
he
don't think
meant
anyone said.
I think
Go
he's
ahead.
saying not just one single multi-sig or one single DAO. I think is the. I don't know if he wants to speak for himself.
I think it would be
No,
amazing.
yeah, no, I think that's.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to execute on an idea or a project, kind of as a committee, right? And just taking one thing at a time, it spreads the energy to the viewing. And yeah, no, I mean, in terms of going back to Derek's kind of point, yes, there are projects that, don't. I'm specifically only talking about the ideas that have been presented, saying the community needs to fund either through their donations or things like that, things that are of the common common for the entire project, not specific to any business. There's been discussions around protocol development funding or different bounties and things like that. Well, where do all these projects kind of lead to? What's the vision behind all of this? And so then we can start thinking about, well, all right, what will it take to build out this vision, and how much capital, how much HNS, USD, what's actually necessary to get us there, and that could be through a hard fork, where the funds are reallocated to an entity that has the flexibility to sell some of it to like VCs or something like that, or it could be a project where it gets reallocated to. I mean, yeah, I use DAO and multi-sig somewhat interchangeably. I think they're most DAOs are effectively just multi-sigs, and you could argue. Yeah. And so, right.
It's kind
But
of like a BTC versus East culture, frankly. It's a cultural difference. Like BTC is a multi-sig. You want to talk East, it's a DAO. Same thing technically.
Yeah, and the line between kind of public, the blockchain protocol funding versus, like company funding is a little fuzzy, right? Like Bitcoin's never paid any besides Satoshi, with Satoshi early in mind, anything for protocol development, right? Whereas other projects like Ethereum continue to this day, 10 years later, to fund protocol development as well as ecosystems. I mean that to some degree, as much as I admire Bitcoin, and the early example, there aren't any projects that are continuing to develop at the protocol level without a funding mechanism through a foundation, a DAO, etc. And actually, the new meta, like chains like Solana, the newest coins, kind of do all three. They have allocations from the beginning. They raise fiat. I mean, they have a development company. They have a foundation. They basically throw everything at continuing to fund ecosystem and protocol development, and in both those things. But whereas Bitcoin leaves all that to the public, and so as a result, it doesn't evolve as much. Or at all, maybe. And so, if the long-term vision of Handshake is, if we see it kind of necessary or desirable to
Cutting out.
Yeah, it's chopping now, Andrew.
Those are great points, though. Those are excellent points.
Hello?
Sorry, guys.
Hello, is he there?
Oh yeah, no. I think Jesse was saying something, but yeah. So
No, I was
apologies,
just
guys.
saying
I'm
You cut out for like 15 seconds, bro.
Yeah, we were just we were just telling you that you had cut out, but I also said those are excellent points. And I think if we could unite in vision, that would be incredible, I think. And what you had said, obviously no one is launching a chain like Bitcoin. No one would ever do that again, and no one could ever do that again. the times have changed. But the way you laid that out, I think funding, protocol, ecosystem, that I think can get a lot of consensus. And so I'm excited to hear. I think it would be incredibly powerful if there's a way that we could unite in terms of vision, and we could all communicate something. I'm a little concerned that we would depart too much from the original vision, because I think the original vision is amazing, but maybe it's vision for how we would use the funding. So it's an exciting convo. And
Yeah,
I'm
I'd
looking
actually like
forward to
one
it.
thing I'd like to say is that I actually see it, as a more of an abstract thing is that comparing Handshake to Bitcoin, the one thing that I'm glad that we're kind of doing now is talking, because I think the biggest mistake, the problem to have with Bitcoin right now, I think everybody knows it, is the max season. Their culture's changed to the maximus, and it's the exact reason why they haven't done anything new is because they don't want. Is they're basically the same people who are telling us do nothing. They don't want anything to change. And because of that, they're basically stuck, and they're kind of getting captured by the government right now, frankly.
Well, I mean, that's a vision of its own. To do
Well,
nothing
well,
is a vision of its own. And I mean, going back to the Bitcoin thing, I mean, I do think the community over there has generally coalesced around that. I mean, they talk about things like ossification. Well, what does that really mean?
no,
Ossifying like a bone. Yeah.
I think that's one just faction. That's a very loud faction, but I don't think that's everybody. But that is a very loud faction. And the problem is that because of a lot of the politics in Bitcoin, it hasn't moved, and it's probably going to have its own problem in the future. And what I see is right now is we have our opportunity that we either decide to replicate Bitcoin's mistakes as I see it, or actually do something. That's what I see. Is at this point we're in an equivalency where Bitcoin deciding should we actually innovate or should we go ossify and don't do anything. That's what I see parallels and abstract to it, and the cultural and with the culture.
All right, we're getting to an hour and a half or 2.5 hours now. At least I think we should. I can just like we can keep. I gotta go, but we gotta keep rolling too. But I might head off. But I think we got the main point. It seems like Santiago. Also, Santiago, I would love to hear from you more. I don't know if you also want to add something. Want to do this again in 2 weeks? All right. Thanks so much, Santiago. Great. Appreciate putting this together. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Santiago. Really appreciate the consistency, everything you do. Have a great night, everyone.
Yeah, I need to get some work on sleep.